Hello, welcome. Today, we'll be breaking down burnout and diving into understanding mental health and organizational impact. You see, relying solely on managers and human resources to spot burnout is like waiting for a leak to become a flood before fixing the roof. It's slow, ineffective, and costly, both for the individual and the organization. When employees are battling burnout, it's not just their personal struggle, it impacts team dynamics, productivity, and the impact you want to have in the world. One of the biggest barriers for most people when it comes to burnout is correctly identifying it and not falling into one of the traps we often hear, like, oh, it's just a little depression, or I'm just drinking too much coffee and it's making me more anxious and jittery. On one hand, we'll explore the top 10 ways burnout impacts individual mental well being, from negative thoughts and roller coaster emotions to strained relationships and feeling lost. But it doesn't stop there. Burnout also takes a toll in organizations with decreased productivity, increased errors, higher absenteeism, decreased engagement, and ultimately a loss of valuable talent. By understanding how burnout affects both individuals and organizations, we're stepping into authentic leadership and taking proactive steps towards a healthier, more vibrant world. So let's roll up our sleeves and dive into how we can tackle burnout head on for the good of everyone involved.
Hey there, I'm Carole Jean Whittington, your guide. Through the waves of burnout, we'll turn the tide. Feel the sun on your face, let your worries subside. Together we'll chase the dreams you've always denied. No more stress, no more feeling distraught. I'll show you how to find the joy that you've sought. In every moment, let your happiness ripen. Let's ride the waves, feel positive vibes deep within. Ride the waves of life, let your worries go. Find the strength within to let your true colors show. With Carole Jean Whittington, guiding your way, you'll embark on a journey to a brighter day. On through winter, brighter day. Feel the sun on your face, let your worries subside. Together we'll chase the dreams you've always denied.
Man, I've had so much fun playing around with some new music for the show. I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. I've got some really fun ones planned. It'll be a different one, different opener, different closer. So you guys have fun. I've been really playing around with, different music themes, and we're having a really good time over here at Whittington Wellbeing, putting together some fun stuff for you guys. So I don't know if you know this, but last week I turned 50, the big 50 on Thursday, May the 2nd. And I'll tell you, there was a time in my life where I just didn't care. I was not interested in what my birthday was because I didn't want to be here anymore. I was so burned out. This was the last place I wanted to be, here on earth. And it was really amazing because after being burnout free for the last 4 years, when I saw it on the calendar and I really like it started to sink in last year, hey, the big 50 is coming up. I was like, this is huge. I can't wait to turn 50 because I never thought I would make it to this point. I didn't expect to still be here. I didn't want to be here back then. Boy, I sure do now, and I cannot wait. I've got at least another 50 to go, if not more. And You see, I'm in my workout clothes. I went for a nice long hike I did today, and we've got our 2 dogs, plus we seem to have acquired our neighbor's dog, who's the cutest little thing, but she has taken up residence under our front porch and decided that we are her people, and we tried to, send her home, and her owner came over to pick her up yesterday, and, she went back home, and the next thing we know, 11 o'clock last night, she's back outside under the porch. It was like, "Oh my gosh." So I have been diving into, I don't know if you guys have tried this yet. This is a digestive health drink, and it's got really low uh, low sugar. So it's called Olipop. I'm not doing like a promo. Nobody pays me for this, but it's really good. And if you guys have not tried it yet, it has prebiotics, botanicals, and plant fiber in it. It's non-GMO. And the one that I got's the cream soda. The best one, like my favorite flavor, is strawberry and vanilla. That one's really good. But I've grabbed these here and there. They're really amazing. I'll tell you, we've got some great stuff coming up this month on this show. Some of our guests, but one of our amazing guests that we're going to have, and it'll be the last episode for May as we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month and really dive into some different aspects of how does burnout impact our mental well-being. And I'm going to be joined by Dr. Nicole Mahoney later this month, and we're going to be looking at how does blood sugar impact burnout for us, specifically our emotional well-being. And so I've been working on, my gut health and microbiome and all those things for several years now, at least 6, probably more like 8 if I'm being honest here. And, just little things like that, adding an Olipop in really make a big difference. And anytime you can cut some sugar down. So we've got a big show today. I cannot wait to dive into this. We've got a lot of goodness. So hi there. If we haven't met yet, I'm Carole Jean Whittington. I'm the host of Beyond Chronic Burnout. So all month long, I'll be sharing mental health related insights, resources, and fantastic guests as we dive into the impact burnout has on our mental well-being. And I'll be sharing our stellar guest lineup for May at the end of the show. So stick around. Next week, we have a big heavy hitter come into the show, and I cannot wait for you guys to join us. So stick around and I'll share more about her at the end of the episode today. So we're going to be diving into the impact of burnout on both individual mental health and organizational performance. So let's start with the top 10 ways burnout impacts mental health on an individual level. Then we'll round out our conversation with the top 5 impacts of burnout on work performance and how it can cost an organization more than money. I know that's usually the top of our list, as executives and company directors. We're looking at our bottom line, and burnout has some of the biggest impact, not just on your bottom line, your dollar, but in your human capital. So let's dive into the top 10 ways burnout impacts mental health. I think we've got to start by defining mental health first so that we're all sort of working from the same sheet, as they say. So, mental health is a person's psychological, emotional, and social well being and how it affects how they think, feel, and act. It's important at every stage of life, from childhood to adulthood. Mental health also helps people cope with stress, relate to others, and make choices. So, let's dive into our list here. We got some good ones, some good juicy ones, I think. Let's start with the thing that usually gets most of us in a whole heap of trouble, and that's our negative thoughts. So, burnout can make you think more negatively about yourself and the world around you. So, let's dive into that for just a second because as humans, we tend to have a negativity bias, right? We tend to go to the negative. And why do we do that? Because when we are looking for the bad things that could happen, the stuff that could go wrong, all of the haywire things that could happen in our life, when we are like wired to look for that, it's done that way to keep us safe, right? And we don't always know it. We're not consciously aware. But burnout can make this even worse. It can really amplify the negative thoughts. So, are you a negative thinker? Have you been a super negative thinker, maybe more than usual? This might be a place for you to pay attention. So let's look at number 2, roller coaster emotions. Oh, this is a really big one. And we're going to talk later this month about how our blood sugar levels can really impact this more than we might realize. But when we're talking about roller coaster emotions, burnout messes with your feelings. It can make you react more strongly, and you can find it more difficult to control your emotions. So, how many times have you been in a meeting or someone says something and you're just like, oh, immediately you just feel like you've said something and you're like, I just didn't really mean to say that out loud. Or later you're like, I meant it. Maybe I felt it, but I didn't mean to say it in that moment to the person. And then you're regretting it and you get the shame storm and all the stuff. Our emotions during burnout can really hit this big cycle where we feel like we're out of control. It can make you feel like you're nuts. I'm just going to be honest. It can make you feel like you're a little bit losing it, right? A little bit wackadoodle. At least that's how I have felt in the past. So let's look at number 3 here, keeping to yourself. Now, this is kind of a big one. It's really important for us to talk about this because there's some of us that we're just like, I'm an introvert. Well, I'm an introverted extrovert, by the way. No, most of you guys would not guess it that I am an introverted extrovert person. I love people. I love to talk, but I also am like shy. I like to keep to myself, and it just depends on the context, right? So when we're talking about keeping to yourself, burnout might make you want to avoid other people or, events or places or things that you once loved. And it can leave you feeling really lonely and isolated. And we saw last year where the Surgeon General came out and said some of the biggest impacts on our health is when we are withdrawing and feeling more isolated. And this is actually amplified since COVID-19. So, this is a really big topic that we need to look at. And when we're looking at maybe why that may be happening, in my research, we're showing that 93% of adults are reporting some degree of burnout right now. So, as we are looking at all of these different things, let's talk about the next one. This one might be a bit of a sore subject for some of us. It might be something you haven't realized, or it might be something you are painfully realizing. And that is number 4, bad decisions. How many times have I looked back over my lifetime and I've gone, oh dear Lord, why did I do that? That was like the worst decision. I could not see the forest for the trees. I just made a really bad decision in that moment. And the thing is, burnout can cloud your judgment. It can make it harder to make good choices or really well-informed choices because it also impacts our ability to process more information or to see options because we tend to lose our possibilitarian aspect in burnout. So we don't see the possibilities. We're just like, we get in that negativity bias and then we're like only seeing the bad stuff. We're trying to choose the least of the bad decisions. And sometimes we're just like, I'm just so tired. Just whatever's just right in front of me, just do the path of least resistance, right? And we end up making some bad decisions that we really regret. And that can be so painful. And those can be the things that follow you for decades. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being really personal and sharing a whole lot of stuff here as I revealed it. That has been the case for me going through burnout for decades. So let's look at number 5, stress overload. And you're like, well, Carole Jane, isn't that burnout in itself? Yeah, but let's talk about this. Stress overload. Burnout makes you super sensitive to stress. So there's 3 types of stress. There is distress, which is the negative, like it impacts you in a not so great way. There's new stress, which is neutral stress. It doesn't have a positive or a negative charge. It just is kind of like the pressure that exists in the world as it is, right? And then we have eustress, eustress, which is like the good kind of stress. We actually need stress in our life. We need the good kind of stress in our life. So new stress is like that neutral kind of like it's not one or another. Then we've got that eustress, which is like, oh, I've got this new project. I've got a date. There's some things there. Those are positive pressure points, stresses, right? But when we get into burnout, it makes us more sensitive to stress, specifically distress. So even small things can feel like a really big deal. I remember I had a friend tell me one time, she had dropped the container of milk on the kitchen floor, and she said it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And when it happened, it was like the whole house of cards came crashing down because I had dropped the milk and spilled it on the floor. And sometimes when we're in burnout and we become very sensitive to even the smallest things, then it can all just sort of feel like it then just amplifies, right? So let's look at number 6. Number 6 is a big one. Now, for the almost 40 years that I spent in some degree of burnout, I can affirmatively say that burnout impacted and strained relationships in my life. So basically, I didn't have a whole lot of really good relationships. I didn't have any relationships. Let's just be honest. I didn't even have a relationship with myself. So when we're talking about strained relationships, we're talking about not just with other people, but the relationship with yourself. Burnout can make it tough to get along with others. It can make it tough to feel like you get along with yourself. It can cause eruptions and arguments. It can cause a lot of misunderstandings, especially when burnout is impacting your cognitive load, your working memory, the things that really show up. And now I'm going to get real granular here for a second. I'm going to check in with you. Have you ever had that one friend and they come up and they say, "Hey, do you remember when we went on that vacation or when we did so and so?" And you have no freaking clue what they are talking about. And they keep talking and they keep explaining this event or this thing that you did with them that you're not remembering, and they keep trying to they've now picked up on the fact that you don't remember. So they're giving you more prompts, more context and more details. And you're like, "It's fuzzy. I kind of remember it." But you're like, I don't really remember this." And then the other person, like, this hits home. Well, sometimes I've had this happen. I've had some other people say this has happened to them. They whip out their phone and pull up the picture of you with them doing this thing that you really don't remember. And at this point, the other person has been processing all of this body language and feedback that you've been giving them, not remembering this. And most often, because we have that negativity bias, right? The other person is going, "Oh, this wasn't as important to you as it was to me. You don't remember it because it didn't matter to you." And that could absolutely not be the case at all, because burnout will really impact your memory, your long term, your short term, your working memory. It will hijack all of it. But specifically when it comes to your relationships, this is an area where relationships can get strained. I mean, this is a tough one. Has this ever happened to any of you guys? Let's just kind of, dive into that one for a minute. Well, before we go wrap up our last 3 items on our list of the top 10 impact areas in burnout in our individual lives and mental well-being, I want to take a minute for this short break so I can share something powerful to help you identify burnout. So, if you're relating to those 6 things that I've already covered, you might want to join me for this next thing. If you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and just not like yourself, it could be burnout. But it's more than just work fatigue and lack of motivation. At Whittington Wellbeing, we understand that burnout impacts every aspect of your life, including your mental health. That's why we've developed the Spicy Pepper Burnout Quiz, designed specifically for neurodivergent and disabled adults. Unlike other quizzes that only scratch the surface, ours delves deep into over 8 key impact areas of burnout. Take the first steps towards reclaiming your well being. Visit our website at whittingtonwellbeing.com and discover your spicy pepper level today. Plus, don't miss out on our upcoming free classes every Thursday from May 16th to June 13th, where you can learn more about the unveiling method and uncover your degree of heat. Don't wait. Take control of your burnout journey today. Visit whittingtonwellbeing.com and discover your spicy pepper level with our burnout quiz. Plus, join us live for free classes every Thursday starting May 16th to June 13th. Don't let burnout hold you back any longer. Take the first step today. So let's hop back into our top 10 list as we move into the last 3 items for ways burnout impacts our mental health and well-being. So here we go. Here's this big number 7, feeling lost. Now, burnout might make you question who you are and what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And if you're like me and you're also a late identified autistic ADHDer, this is like an identity crisis. And a lot of people come to their identification late in life because of burnout. But feeling lost, this is something that I felt for almost 40 years. From the time I was 6 and experienced my very first burnout through most of my life, not only was I quote unquote the really smart, quirky girl, but I felt lost. I felt like I didn't have a purpose. I didn't know why I was here. I questioned everything. And I felt for decades like I was just really lost. That's why turning 50 last week was such a really big deal because I finally don't feel lost. I know who the heck I am. And it feels amazing. And I want to help you feel this way too. So let's dive into number 8. Number 8 is losing coping skills. Ooh-wee. Let's talk about this one. The reason this one's real important in my global spicy research study over the last 3 years, 100% of research respondents says that they have lost a skill or ability due to burnout. 100% of folks. So burnout weakens your ability to handle problems, leaving you feeling overwhelmed. Well, not just overwhelmed, you can also lose the skills and abilities that you utilize to perform those tasks. And it can be really, really frustrating. And it can make you feel like you are losing your mind, going crazy, all of the fun stuff, right? So let's dive into number 9, doubting yourself. Oh, man. Doubting yourself. Whew, that's a big one. That's a really hard one. Burnout makes you doubt if you're capable of achieving your goals and dreams and dealing with life's challenges. I just thought I sucked at adulting. I thought I was failing at every turn. I mean, it was just I doubted everything. I doubted my own thoughts. I doubted my own feelings. This one can really amplify big time. And it does not feel good. It does not feel fun at all. Now, number 10, I love number 10, and I'm going to tell you why I love number 10. Missing fun. I want to stop and ask you one time, real quick. Hey, Edna, I see you out there over on YouTube. Okay, do you feel like you've been missing some fun in your life? I don't know about you, but I sure had. And what's really interesting, when we look at the top areas that burnout impacts in my global spicy research study, when we get to number 4 on the list, it's playfulness and fun. So when you're like, okay, well, if I'm burnt out, I don't have the energy to have fun, right? Burnout takes away the joy from things. It can be the absolute joy thief. It really can. And it can steal joy from the things that you used to love. And it can leave you feeling really empty, disappointed, FOMO, fear of missing out. Like sometimes we tend to push ourselves. This can also be sort of the catalyst to staying in burnout or moving deeper into burnout. It's like, oh, this is fun and I want to do this so bad. Or I was invited to go to this thing and I really want to go. It's something I love. And you know you're burned out. You know you should be doing some other quote, quote, should be doing some things to take care of your energy and your body and yourself and your stuff. But you don't want to do it. So you push through, you power through because you want to have fun. And then you get there and you're so busy just trying to hold it together because you're miserable that it's not fun. And that can really, really be horrible. That can feel bad. You want to talk about like the big impact on your mental well being? Missing out on fun, feeling like you're missing out on fun. So now let's shift our focus just a moment here and let's dive into the other side of this conversation today. Let's focus on how burnout impacts organizations and their bottom line and how it can cost a company more than just money. Now, this is a big one because I talk about in the workplaces specifically, we tend to be, I see so many organizations, they're really focused on let's train our managers so that they can recognize burnout. let's make sure our managers know how to recognize burnout in their teams so that we can catch this and fix the problem, right? And then we've got human resources acting as our catch-all problem solver. And folks, our human resources professionals experience the highest rate of burnout over any other area. They're at 98% burnout. And here we are relying on our human resources to identify burnout when they're burned out and probably don't have the bandwidth, right? We just looked at some of those ways it impacts us. Do you think that they're going to be able to identify and make the best decisions if they are also burned out? So I think as organizations, and if we're really talking about being authentic leaders, not just in our own lives, but in the lives of those that we lead, we really have to own this and we have to step up, because it isn't about relying on our managers and our human resources to identify burnout. It is about bringing in resources and in helping our individual staff members to better identify it within themselves, because how I feel and experience burnout may not be the same way that you feel and experience burnout on your end. So we have to be able to pull all of these things in to help someone realize that this is what's going on, because we got a lot of blind spots. But let's talk about what are the top 5 ways that burnout is impacting organizations, and how's it costing more than just money? I mean, money is the big thing, sure, but let's look at decreased productivity. So burned out employees may struggle to focus and complete tasks efficiently, leading to lower productivity levels. Well, when we look at my global spicy research over the last 3 years, with 100%, this is everyone that, I mean, and this has been thousands of folks over the last 3 years who have gone through and taken this research survey, have said their skills and abilities have been impacted. So that's going to impact and decrease their productivity. Well, then let's look at the second one. This is kind of a big one too: increased errors. Now, I come from a healthcare background. I was a hospital administrator. And if we are looking I've got a lot of finance clients, I've got a lot of medical professionals. Let's look at our increased errors in this. One of the biggest problems that we had in the hospital networks was when nurses had started to tune out the devices in the rooms when they started to beep. A lot of times you got those blood pressure cuffs on and it will beep because somebody moves or rolls over in the bed, right? Well, there are errors that can start to occur. And this, if we really look at this, mental exhaustion can impair concentration and attention to detail, resulting in more mistakes and errors in work. Well, if we're looking at that, I mean, think about whatever industry you are in, how is burnout impacting the number of errors that are happening in your field of business, your service of your clients? This is a huge one. So let's look at number 3, higher absenteeism. So not only have we had all of the higher rates of absenteeism due to COVID and a lot of the variants and those types of things, but we're also looking at higher absenteeism related directly to burnout. I cannot tell you how many clients I have that come to work with me and they're like, I have used up all of my sick time. I am burnt through all of my PTO, my paid time off, because I simply have been taking days to recover, to try and energize myself enough to keep going the next week. The majority of the days that we're seeing being taken off are not directly related to a health issue like a virus or, an infection or something like that. It couldn't even be infection related to burnout, but higher absentee is coming directly related to the impact that burnout has. So let's look at number 4, decreased engagement. Now, we all know this is a big hot topic. This is a buzzword that we hear in the business world. We are looking to increase our engagement rates, right? Well, burnout can cause disengagement and apathy among employees, leading to reduced motivation and commitment to their work. Because think about those top 10 things we talked about. when you just don't have it in you. Your heart might want to do it, and you've been powering through trying to do it for a really long time, but your heart's just not showing up in the same way. And it's not because you don't care. It's because burnout has shown up in your world. So let's look at number 5 as we wrap up. Higher turnover rates. And when I said things that will cost you more than just money, well, this definitely hits your pocketbook. As a business owner, this will hit your pocketbook hard. Employees experiencing burnout may seek opportunities elsewhere. This is one of the top reasons when I've done some research and done a lot of surveys into this and say, you know, if you're burned out, are you looking for another job? And most people think it's my job causing my burnout. And a lot of times it is. It can be the environment. It's all of these things. So they immediately blame the job itself or the organization, right? And that can be very true. So we got to own that as well. If you've got really high turnover rates, what is your organizational environment? Number one, are you creating higher rates of burnout, which increase in disengagement? But employees experiencing burnout are going to seek opportunities elsewhere if you also, as the leader, as the organization, are not providing ways for someone to recognize that, number one, they might be burned out, and number two, ways that they can start to navigate out of it. If you're the person that is providing that way out, you're rare right now. Leading to higher turnover rates and increased costs. So when we talk about the cost of this, recruitment costs, that's 1.5 times whatever the salary is of the person that is currently in that job. Training, onboarding new employees, and that's putting more stress. Remember, we talked about our wonderful human resources and professionals. We're now putting more stress on the group that has the highest stress and burnout rate in most organizations. So we're just perpetuating and creating more problems. So if we're going to be authentic leaders and we're really going to step up and lead our companies and lead our people, we cannot solely rely on hoping that an on-demand course that we have sent all of our managers to or a one-day training is going to give them the resources to help identify when somebody else is in burnout and help them. I'm going to tell you, through my research, you will not be able to identify someone else is experiencing burnout until they have reached at least a high degree of heat in a level 3 cayenne pepper burnout or a level 4 habanero. And by that time, they've already been experiencing burnout in a gradual rate of increase for at least 6 months or longer. And you also have to know that person well enough to be able to identify the signs of burnout. So when we can teach people on an individual level how to more effectively identify burnout for themselves, we catch it faster, it's more effective, and then we can address it more quickly to get people back to their very best thriving selves because you hired them for a reason, right? You said yes to that job. You were all gung-ho and signed the contract that says, heck yes, because you liked the company, you liked the job. Burnout just makes you feel like you don't love it anymore. So let's do something to change that. Thanks for joining me today, guys. I really appreciate you being here and being in the conversation. Oh, man. Hey, Michelle, so glad you're here. Oh, man, I love seeing you guys in the chat. I love you joining and being on and joining along here live for the show on Tuesdays. Thanks for joining me today on Beyond Chronic Burnout. Remember, identifying burnout within yourself first is the fastest and most effective way to get out of it before it becomes chronic and costs more than just your energy. Tune in next week for a conversation with best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and human potential enthusiast with a Master of Science from the London School of Economics, Ms. Courtney McDermott. If you're tired of looking outside of yourself for the answers, allow author and mind-body expert Courtney McDermott to guide you on a journey inside yourself. She is joining me next week on the show, and we're going to be diving into her book, Give Yourself Permission. And we're going to be tapping into some areas of trust that can be big, giant energy drainers. And guys, here's one more of these fun little jingle songs that we've been putting together over here on our production team. I hope you have fun. I hope you enjoy it. It's just a little thank you for being here today. And I'll see you next week on Tuesday with Court.
Thanks for being here. It's been quite a ride. Energy mastery, let's turn the tide. Top shelf guests, dropping wisdom bombs. Join us next week, where the energy's strong. Be on chronic.